I have very fond memories of the Volvo XC70 that we owned, and if I was to get a new car today, it would have to be its successor, a plug-in hybrid version of the V60, which are as rare as hen's teeth at the dealerships around here. The V70 was a continuation of Volvo's rejuvenation in the 1990s, but successive versions would be subject to its various foreign owners as the company got passed from pillar to post. It's a car that spanned an important part of Volvo's history, from success as an independent company to lackluster sales, back to success under foreign ownership. This is the Volvo V70 and XC70 story. The first Volvo V70 was a rebranding exercise, being an estate version of the 850 with a 1996 mid-cycle refresh. The 850 Saloon was branded as the S70, S standing for sedan or saloon and V for versatility. The exterior redesign was overseen by the late great Peter Horbury, and the S70 and V70 gave a sneak peek of his new Volvo design language that would appear on the new S80 2 years later. It was a softer, more rounded shape, but then again anything would be less angular than Volvo's previous boxy shape that had been very successful but had run its course. Inside there was a new interior designed by Jose Luis Diaz de la Vega, and Volvo continued its move up market, with the standard model getting central locking, heated mirrors and electric windows, along with a smattering of wooden leather. Many parts were lifted from the S80, whose goal was understated prestige, so although it had a certain level of practicality, like the BMW 5 Series, it still offered a good level of luxury. There were the latest suite of airbags, side impact protection, and an ingenious integrated child seat. Like the previous car, there would be a faster T5 version using a 2.3 litre turbocharged version of the 5-cylinder engine, delivering 237 horsepower with a 0 to 60 time around 7 seconds. The V70 also used a Volkswagen turbo diesel if you crave fuel economy. It was no slouch either, getting to 60 in under 10 seconds. There was a bi-fuel compressed natural gas version pitched as a more environmentally friendly alternative to burning refined oil. The fuel costs less, but the bulky gas tank in the boot hampered the estate's practicality. Soon Volvo launched the V70R, the power increased to 250 horsepower and it got better handling thanks to lowered suspension. Like many cars at the time, this top-of-the-range model got all the optional extras Volvo could throw at it. The V70, like the 850 before it, was front-wheel drive, but there were all-wheel drive models as well. Volvo produced the V70 XC in 1997 that had a little off-roading verve, maybe taking a page from Subaru's book, producing a family car that wasn't a full off-roader but could make light work of a winter snowstorm. With roof rails, this was Volvo's most practical car yet, but with only 25mm extra ground clearance, it wasn't up to competing with SUVs. Customers were starting to warm to that style of car with its commanding view of the road, but the V70 XC was the best that Volvo could do, for now at least. The V70 kept on selling, but an earthquake shook the company in 1999 when Volvo's management announced the company had been sold to Ford. The American company integrated Volvo into their other European luxury brands, Jaguar, Aston Martin, and in 2000 Land Rover. On one hand, Volvo now had another company second-guessing their every decision, but on the positive side, they could draw on a wealth of parts to make their cars better and could share the cost of developing future cars. If Ford got it right, the rising tide could lift all three companies, and once again Ford could rule the luxury car market in Europe and maybe North America as well. The new V70 wasn't affected by this change, at least initially. It was almost ready for launch, but to get a little more use out of the tooling on the existing car, Volvo renamed the existing car as the V70 Classic and sold it alongside the new model with a new 5-speed automatic transmission. The new Volvo V70 launched in 2000. It was based on the new S80 that had launched a couple of years earlier. Ford was so impressed by the platform, it would be used for a variety of Ford, Mercury and Lincoln cars in North America. Volvo claimed the new adhesive bonding process made the new V70 70% more rigid than the old model. As with the previous car and the Volvo 850 before it, main V70 production was in Belgium and Sweden with limited assembly in Malaysia and Thailand. Peter Horbury's design team used styling cues from the S80 in the new car. It was also more aerodynamic. Maybe for comedic effect he bemoaned the fact that he had to take the front end of the S80 Sports Saloon and somehow make it work as an estate, describing the styling as the front end of a Jaguar E-Type married to the back end of a Ford Transit van. But the team did a great job making a stylish, practical car. There was a choice of a 2-litre or 2.4-litre 5-cylinder or a 2.4-litre diesel with turbos to make them more exciting and each delivering respectable performance. The automatic had an auto stick function that allowed manual gear selection. The bi-fuel option was still available, supporting both CNG and LPG, but this time the gas tank was tucked away next to the petrol tank, which freed up the boot. This made the practical V70 even more practical. Like Doctor Who's TARDIS, the new car was bigger on the inside as well. The larger V90 had ended production in 1998, but Volvo were keen to point out that the new V70 had a similar amount of interior space. It was certainly functional, with not one but two booster seats that transformed the rear, and optional kids seats in the boot that collapsed into the floor when not in use. Like other cars at the time, there was a navigation system that popped out of the dashboard, and when stationary it could be used to watch TV. The 12-speaker audio system with CD changer and subwoofer made for a very premium car. In fact, the quality approached that of German luxury brands, making some, including me, think this was a better deal as the Volvo was cheaper. Plus it drove well and you knew your kids would be safe. I interviewed the V70's chief designer Peter Horbury for my Volvo S80 video, and he talked about this and Volvo's challenge to move away from its boxy image.
This has always been a problem, that to be seen as premium, in China they call it ABB. It's Audi, Benz, BMW. And to get into that ABB, it would be, VABB. The cars are equal, if not better, to be honest. I mean, some of the top line EX90, XC90, V90, they are superb quality and content, but it's always, that one step beneath the ABB group, but in reality it's not. And it's just perception. I still read, when I read a road test or an article about a new Volvo, Volvo are known for their antique dealer, boxy cars. That was 30, 40 years ago now. And it's frustrating for everybody that it was such a strong identity, and it's taken a long time to ditch it.
It was still a V70 XC or cross country, and I liked the car so much I got one in 2002. It had 210mm of ground clearance, but it never felt like a tall car and handled bends well. Large grey bumpers gave it an off-roading look. Volvo brought back the Whitbread Round the World yacht race in 2001 as the Volvo Ocean Race and commemorated the event with a special 2002 edition V70 Ocean Race model, and again in 2005. They were a unique shade of blue with silver trim outside and blue trim on the inside. Volvo hadn't forgotten about making the V70R. That was unveiled at the 2002 Paris Motor Show and was available in 2003. It had a go faster spoiler on the rear that was surely more show than function. The uprated 300 horsepower 2.5 litre turbocharged engine certainly wasn't, and it got to 60 in under 6 seconds using a 6-speed manual, but a 5-speed automatic was offered as well. The suspension could be set to Comfort, Sport or Advanced Sport. Who said you couldn't have the hot hatch you dreamed of when you were a kid, now that you had kids of your own? Volvo's first SUV, the XC90, launched in 2002. It used the same platform as the V70 and V70 XC that was rebranded as the XC70 to match the new car. The new XC90 took some sales from Volvo's large estate, but that was to be expected. All that mattered was Volvo sold more cars, and that definitely happened. In 2004 they sold more than 200,000 V70 and XC90s. There was a small refresh in 2005 with small changes to the front bumper, the dashboard and the centre console, along with minor changes under the bonnet. There was now the option of a 6-speed automatic. The next generation V70 debuted in 2007 for the 2008 model year. It had been developed entirely under Ford's watch, and Ford were understandably keen to share platforms as much as possible. So the S80 and the V70 would use a common Ford platform.
Then the next S80 was to be based on the EUCD platform, Ford platform, which would make the Mondeo and a couple of other vehicles in some of the other brands. But the EUCD was a lot narrower. It had a completely different proportion, but it was a very Ford way of doing things to get the most out of one of their new platforms.
The V70 shared its platform with the Ford S-Max and Galaxy minivans, the Mondeo and the second generation Land Rover Freelander. It had also been used on the new Volvo S80 and would go on to be used for many other vehicles under Ford's wing. This made Volvo's development budget go further, helpful given that overall sales hadn't been as good as expected. The Jaguar X-Type had been sunk by being called just a fancy Ford Mondeo as it shared the same platform. Volvo were hoping their car that also shared the Ford Mondeo platform wouldn't have the same fate. As Peter mentioned, the platform meant the car wasn't as wide as Volvo wanted, so although the new V70 was longer, wider and taller than the old V70, Volvo had to do some clever engineering, using long overhangs to make the platform something that would work for a luxury car. Although the platform might be quite different, the car looked very similar to the old model, updated with a new look. Safety was improved with a second generation whiplash protection system, updated airbags and a stronger side structure. Like the S80, the front of the car was improved to help pedestrian safety in an accident, something that previous Volvos had been given uncharacteristically poor marks. There would be a new 4-cylinder petrol and diesel from Ford's range and a 6-cylinder that was shared with Land Rover. The old 5-cylinder petrol and diesel engines from the previous generation were still available. Volvo even offered a frugal 1.6-litre diesel, part of the Drive series of cars that aimed to lower carbon emissions. The manual and automatic transmissions were a mixture of Ford and Volvo parts, presumably so that they could be mated with the correct engine. There was no bi-fuel option, but Volvo offered a flexi-fuel engine that would run on fuel that was 85% ethanol and 15% petrol, something Sweden was trying to encourage at the time. The first engine was criticised for being weak, so in 2009 Volvo switched it for a 5-cylinder turbo. There was still some interest in running the car on natural gas, and Volvo offered aftermarket conversions through their dealers. The practical rear seats had a 40-20-40 split, but there were many more features. Smaller kids in the back seat got a 2-stage booster cushion, allowing 2 levels of height to make sure the safety belts were correctly fitted. They were handy, but not the world breakthrough that Volvo's marketing team called them. There was rear seat entertainment that could help fidgeting kids on long road trips, but in my experience it was used on the trip home from school, at precisely the time when parents and kids needed to engage with each other. For the driver there was Bluetooth, of course, along with a well laid out dashboard with premium materials. Front seats could be cooled as well as heated. The outside air quality was monitored and vents automatically closed if things weren't pleasant. Adaptive cruise control could brake as well as accelerate, and the auto brake system helped you avoid collisions or warn you that you were drifting out of your lane. If a collision was anticipated, the car moved the brake pads closer to the discs to reduce the time it would take for the brakes to take effect. The blind spot information system, or BLIS, showed a light in either side mirror when a vehicle was in your blind spot, something that I found quite useful. Headlights could turn up to 15 degrees to see around bends. The personal car communicator provided some of the features that modern cars offer through their smartphone app, the ability to monitor your car, but only within a range of 100 meters. You could check you've locked the car if the alarm has been activated, or if there's someone in the car. The fast model was the T6 all-wheel drive with the same 300 horsepower as the previous generation car, and also an R design model with sport styling and the blue dials of the old model. Of course, there would also be a new XC70. By having that connection with Land Rover, it got a little Range Rover magic with hill descent control that limited the vehicle's speed whilst going down a steep incline. It also got a few extra luxury touches like heated rear seats. The 2008 economic storm clouds were threatening car companies, and to save itself from bankruptcy, Ford divested itself of Aston Martin, Jaguar and Land Rover. They tried to hold on to Volvo but couldn't make the numbers add up. Volvo was purchased by Chinese company Geely for a fraction of the price Ford had paid 10 years earlier. Geely was a newcomer on the scene. It had only been founded in 1986 to make refrigerators. They expanded to making motorcycles in the 1990s and only got the go-ahead to manufacture cars from the Chinese Communist Party in 2002. Geely's purchase of Volvo not only helped the Swedish company survive, but also boosted their sales in the Chinese market now that they had a company with the knowledge to sell there and all the right connections. They had the foresight to provide the cash for Volvo to succeed while getting out of management's way. With bankrupt General Motors hyping up their work on the new Chevrolet Volt plug-in hybrid that would save the company, Volvo explored their own version using the V70. It was pretty basic with just a 19-mile range and drivers had to manually switch between electric and diesel power, but it led to a commercial V70 plug-in hybrid in 2012. Like in 2001 and 2005, Volvo reminded us that they were still sponsoring the Ocean Race by making the V70 and XC70 special editions in 2011 and 2014. But special editions or not, the new V70 wasn't doing well. After a spike in sales the year the new model launched, demand dropped to less than the last year the old model was on sale. Demand didn't recover. More people were choosing the larger XC90 over the V70, me included. So few V70s were sold in North America that Volvo discontinued it in 2011. They continued selling the XC70, but only two models, a front-wheel drive and the all-wheel drive T6. In fact, sales for all of Volvo's cars in their top markets were down, reaching a nadir in 2013, the year the V70 would get a refresh. Volvo said the new front and rear bumpers created a stretched effect, making it look wider and lower. The rear lights were apparently redesigned, but the changes were so subtle as to be hardly worth mentioning. Inside there was a new touchscreen in-car entertainment system with speech and Spotify integration. But there were also less useful features as well. You could surf the web if you didn't feel like using your smartphone for some reason, and there was trip info that read out interesting points along your route from Wikipedia. I'm sure that wasn't annoying. But realistically, this facelift was just a way to get a little more life out of the existing car. Production ended in 2016 and customers were directed to the existing V60 that itself was about to get an update, or the new larger V90, a sister car to the S90. Volvo was still selling the V90 in 2024, but its main focus was on smaller cars and of course SUVs and crossovers, and that paid off. Sales in Europe and China have boomed since 2013, countries where smaller cars were the king of narrow roads and tight car parks. Volvo created their first practical estate in the 1950s, the Duet. The V70 and XC70 continued that tradition of making practical family cars, a Swiss Army knife for the road. If you want to know more about the V70, then you need to understand the story of its sister car, the S80. There's a lot more information that I missed out of this video and lots more from its designer Peter Horbury in what was quite possibly his last interview. There's a link to that video on the right. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.